The other day, a woman left a comment asking me, "Anna, I was born in the year of the ox. I've been working hard and saving diligently my whole life, but I still feel like I'm not getting rich fast enough. Why is that?" When I read that, it felt so familiar. Honestly, that story is not just hers. A lot of people born in the year of the ox, especially those who have been through enough ups and downs in life, share that same feeling. They know how to hold on to money, they know how to save, but somehow their finances always grow slowly, never quite taking off the way they imagined. That reminded me of when I was little, living in Vietnam with my grandmother. Our house was small and crowded, so everything had to be neat and organized. Grandma would always remind us, "If your sleeping space isn't peaceful, you won't be either." Or, "If the house is dark, your heart will be dark too." At the time, I used to argue with her. I thought feng shui was just some silly superstition that had nothing to do with studying or real life. I clearly remember how my room was always a mess, barely any light, stuff piled up everywhere. But I still did well in school, and I believed that personal effort was all that mattered. Back then, I couldn't connect the uneasy feeling I got from walking into a messy room with my mental state or my financial decisions. I just felt annoyed and frustrated, but I couldn't name it. Maybe you've felt that way too, right? Just picture this. You spend your whole life working hard, pouring your energy into your job, yet your money still seems to move at a walking pace, while other people seem to have it easier. To be honest with you, that old house of mine was the very first lesson I ever had about saving and slow wealth building, and I did not realize it at the time. It was not about fate. It was not about luck either. It was simply about habits, about the living environment and how people treat themselves. Those things quietly shape your mindset, your spending behavior, and your decisions around money. In this video, I want to sit down with you, tell a story, take a step back, and reflect on why people born in the year of the ox are usually great at saving, but tend to get rich slowly. I am not here to promise any miracles or tell you what you must or must not do. I simply want to share some personal experiences and observations, things I used to question or even reject, but now see as genuinely valuable. Maybe you will recognize yourself in these stories and feel a little more at ease. First, let's talk about the personality traits and habits of those born in the year of the ox. If you were born in the year of the ox, you have probably noticed something about yourself. You tend to be more patient and persistent than most people around you. That may sound simple, but honestly, this persistence is both a gift and a challenge. When I was younger, I used to wonder why I was always working hard, always pushing forward, but my results came so slowly. They never seemed to take off as fast as others. I remember a friend of mine, also born in the year of the ox, once told me, "I saved for a whole year, but I still see people who spend just a few months and end up doubling what I have." I laughed, but I also nodded, because that story is so familiar to many of us ox folks. We do not take big risks. We like certainty. We prefer having the money in our pocket rather than chasing risky investments. I was the same. Back when I was studying economics, I paid close attention to how I spent money and how my classmates were trying to build wealth. I learned that people born in the year of the ox tend to be cautious in every decision, big or small, whether it is shopping, investing, or choosing a job. Back then, I used to tell myself, it is okay to be a little more careful, a little slower. But you know what? That slowness eventually shaped a pattern. We are great at saving, but our money does not grow quickly. People born in the year of the ox like to see things clearly, to be certain, and sometimes that means missing out on opportunities that others are quicker to grab. I remember when I first came to the United States, at just 23 years old, I worked multiple jobs, saving every single dollar. But looking around, I saw others my age who jumped into investment opportunities and saw returns way faster. I kept asking myself, did I do something wrong, or is it just who I am? To be honest, back then I blamed myself a little, but over time I realized, it is not a flaw, it is just how we are wired. People born in the year of the ox are naturally patient, cautious, and self-restrained. We like to focus our energy on things we can count on. We do not gamble in hopes of fast results. In feng shui, people born in the year of the ox are often described as diligent, persistent, and long-term accumulators. Not the kind of people who get rich fast, but the kind who build steady, lasting wealth, slowly. Take a look around you. Do you or someone you know who is born in the year of the ox tend to choose stable jobs instead of job hopping to chase quick raises? Do we prefer to keep money in the bank for the long run rather than throwing it into high-risk investments? I have seen many ox folks, just like I was when I was younger. We like security. We like to save bit by bit. Sometimes we feel pressured seeing others take off ahead of us, but we tell ourselves, I may be slow, but I will get there eventually. That reminds me again of my childhood, living with my grandmother. She always said, you need to know how to hold on to money, but do not let it wear you down. At the time, I did not understand. I just noticed how carefully she arranged everything, from household items to our living space. And somehow that taught me a quiet principle. Safety and consistency in your daily habits create the foundation for your future. Slow but solid. And here is the key point. People born in the year of the ox are not lacking in ability or hard work. What we do have is a mindset of slow but steady that forms very early in life, from our personality, from how we assess risk, and from the environments we have lived in. Do you recognize that in yourself? If you do, then pay close attention. That very mindset is what allows us to save steadily, but it is also what makes our wealth grow slower than those who are willing to take bigger risks, even if those risks are less certain. Second, let's talk about our mindset and how life experiences shape us. If you are an ox, you have probably asked yourself at some point, I know how to save, I know how to build up my money, so why is it still growing so slowly? I remember when I first moved to the United States and started living independently, I felt exactly the same. I took on multiple jobs, saved every dollar I could, but saw people my age jumping into investments and already seeing quick results. And I kept asking myself, where did I go wrong? But the truth is, we did not do anything wrong. People born in the year of the ox are naturally cautious, careful, and focused on minimizing risk. And that comes not just from personality, but from how we were raised. I grew up in a crowded house with many family members, and I saw my grandmother carefully consider every step, arranging our space, keeping things clean and in order. When she said, "If your sleeping space is not peaceful, you won't be either," I used to argue. But deep down, I realized that her careful attention to small details planted the seeds of a long-term saving mindset. Ox folks like me, when we are young, often focus on tangible, visible savings. We like safety and security. For example, if given a choice between a stable bank account with a moderate interest rate or a high-risk investment with the potential for high returns, most of us would go with the safer option, because our mindset says, better to keep it secure first, then think about growing it later. Does that sound like you? I have seen many people born in the year of the ox who think the same way. This mindset is exactly why our wealth grows slowly, but it is also what keeps it stable. Think about it. If money grows quickly, but without control, ox people would feel anxious. We do not like the feeling that our money could disappear at any moment. Our cautious and patient nature helps us avoid unnecessary risks, but it also slows down the rate at which our wealth grows compared to more aggressive investors. Back then, I also felt that pressure and blamed myself. Why is everyone moving faster than I am, even though I am working so hard? But gradually, I came to realize that this is not about bad luck or a lack of ability. It is about the natural habits we formed early on. These saving habits, our careful approach to risk, and our ability to be patient, they are exactly what allow us to stay strong during difficult times, even if the money grows slowly. I remember back in Vietnam, my grandmother always talked to me about money and family, but she never said things like, "If you do not do this, you will be poor." Instead, she just lived carefully, setting an example, taking care of everything. At the time, I did not get it. But now I see she was teaching me a kind of financial wisdom rooted in emotion and mindset. If you want to build wealth, your emotions must be stable. If you want lasting wealth, your habits must be long-term. And this brings us to something interesting. People born in the year of the ox often carry a quiet pressure. Have you noticed that? When we see others making huge leaps in their careers or investments, we are quick to compare, quick to feel slower, but it is hard for us to act impulsively. Like I once did, we feel stressed, maybe even lose sleep, but at the same time, we develop resilience and the ability to observe. People born in the year of the ox usually learn how to read situations, pick the right timing, and take steady action, instead of diving into risks blindly. I even remember a question someone once asked on my channel. Anna, should people born in the year of the ox take more risks to get rich faster? I smiled, but I replied, if you are going to try, then do it with preparation, observation, and calculation, not just because others are doing it and you feel pressured to keep up. That right there is the typical mindset of an ox. Slow but steady, focused on building, never rushing. And here is one more thing that most people overlook. Your living environment has a huge impact on how fast you accumulate wealth and how you make financial decisions. If your home is cluttered, dark, or stressful, it becomes harder for people born in the year of the ox to concentrate. We become anxious, and that anxiety slows down how we spend or invest. I remember when I first moved to the United States, I was living in a tiny room and my energy started to drop. Almost unconsciously, I began to rearrange my space, opened the windows, cleared out unused stuff, not because of any ritual, but just because I wanted to feel lighter. As a result, I started sleeping better, thinking more clearly, and my spending decisions became faster and more accurate. Just imagine, simply by tidying up your desk or cleaning up your home, your mind feels lighter, your sense of security increases, and suddenly, the way you make financial decisions starts to shift. People born in the year of the ox can really relate to this. We are great at saving. We build wealth slowly, but when we pay attention to our environment and make some changes, our return on savings can actually improve, without losing the sense of security we value so much. Third, living environment, feng shui, and their impact on finances. If you were born in the year of the ox, I am sure you will understand, when I say this, your living environment affects how you save and make financial decisions much more than you might realize. When I was a child, I lived with my grandmother in a small, cramped house, but she always kept everything neat, bright, and uncluttered. She never talked about feng shui in any mystical way. She simply lived carefully, paying attention to every small detail. Back then, I did not believe her. I used to argue with her all the time, but now looking back, I can see that her very practical principles deeply shaped the way I view money and saving. Back then, I left things scattered everywhere. My room was dim, my bed stuck in a cramped corner. When it was time to work or study, I felt tense, irritable, and easily discouraged. Just imagine, if you lived in a cluttered, dark space, would it be easy to focus? Could you make sound financial decisions in that state? Many people born in the year of the ox have likely felt the same way. When I first moved to the United States, I lived in tiny temporary rooms. My mental state clearly suffered. I worked hard and saved every dollar, but I often delayed decisions and made poor ones. It was only after I rearranged my room, opened a window, and cleared the clutter that things shifted. My mind felt lighter, my thoughts clearer, and my financial planning became more effective. It was not magic, it was simply the energy shift that came from creating space and clarity, and that changed how I made money decisions. Have you felt this too? When your space is clean and in order, your heart feels lighter, and when your mind is clear, you naturally have more energy to plan, spot opportunities, and take action. That is what I call practical feng shui: light, space, and order. subtle but powerful influences on how we build wealth. Ox people are naturally patient and cautious, but without the right environment, that patience can turn into delay. A cluttered, dark workspace leads to hesitation and missed opportunities. On the other hand, a bright, organized space helps you stay focused, act on time, and still be true to your cautious self. I once told a friend, also an ox, I cleaned up my desk, opened a window, and felt instantly lighter. That same day, I invested in something small I had been avoiding. It grew slowly, but steadily. She smiled and said, "So your space really affects money decisions?" Absolutely. Ox people need emotional safety, and your space helps create that. Our elders always said, "A tidy home brings peace of mind, and wealth grows little by little." It is not superstition, it is life experience. A messy home drains your energy and slows your thinking. Ox folks understand this naturally. We save well, but wealth comes slowly, and that pace can improve if our mind is clear and our space supports us. So if you are an ox, do not stress about being slower than others. Look around your space, the light, the air, the clutter. Small changes can boost your energy and make financial choices easier, while staying true to your calm, careful nature. Try it today. Clear your desk, open a window, remove what you no longer need. Feel the shift. You might notice that slow but steady becomes more effective, not because of luck, but because your energy and environment are working in harmony. You may realize building wealth slowly is not failure. It is a more reliable path. I used to blame myself for being slower, but life taught me that our patience, caution, and saving habits are what make ox people financially secure in the long run. Think about your life. Steady savings, thoughtful decisions. That paints a picture of stability and independence. I have felt stress and pressure too, but once I improved my environment and mindset, my financial choices became sharper. It was not magic. It was the alignment of character, habit, and space. Ask yourself, is your space clear, bright, and calm enough to help you see opportunities and act on them? Ox people will know the answer. When your mind is at ease, money flows more steadily, no rushing needed. My childhood home taught me this first, and now I know anyone, ox or not, can learn to improve their life and finances by paying attention to their space and energy. You do not need miracles, just awareness, patience, and a bit of smart organization. And finally, do not blame yourself for being slower. Trust your ability to accumulate, observe, and stay patient. Ox people may move slowly, but they move steadily, and that matters. Take a few minutes each day to tidy up and reflect. The path to wealth will become clearer, one steady step at a time. Like me, I am Anna Liang, someone who has gone through enough struggles and pressure. It was through observation, experimentation, and understanding how my own nature and environment affected me that I finally felt more confident in how I handle money. I will not promise you fast riches, but I do believe if you truly understand yourself and take care of both your mental space and your physical space, you will feel less panic, less urgency, and more control over your life. So if you are an ox, be kind to yourself. Go slow but steady. Save step by step. Pay attention to your surroundings and your mindset. That is the path to strong, stable wealth, and you can absolutely walk that path with confidence, one step at a time.